Hey guys, what is up and welcome back to my channel. Gosh, I know it's been a hot minute. I actually filmed a tutorial the other day using the new Too Faced pumpkin spice palette, but I really wanted to play in this and I wanted to get this tutorial up because gosh, I've been asking him for 2 years for a nude palette, so here we are. So today's video is actually a tutorial on this eye look right here, but it's more of like how I create like a plug and play template for working with hooded eyes, because when you're dealing with hooded eyes, you cannot follow the traditional cookie cutter one size fits all YouTube tutorial where they go into the crease with a large fluffy brush and they swashbuckle that color back and forth, because that just does not work with hooded eyes, and it also doesn't work when you have mature, crepey, wrinkly skin. So I'm going to kind of show you guys today kind of how you can kind of create a little plug and play template. And this fun little technique works with like any colors. You can switch the colors up. You can change shimmers, glitters, just whatever you like. Today I did an all matte look simply because I did one in a hot minute. So, all right, that's it. I'm going to keep the intro short. If you guys are new, thank you guys for clicking on the video. I'm Lauren Jade. I'm 58. I have mature, crepey, wrinkly skin, hooded eyes that are slightly downturned, so I'm always looking for ways to pass my tips and tricks on to you guys so you guys can rock your hooded eye situation as well. And that's it. That's it. If you're new, I'd love it if you join me. Please hit the subscribe button and the post notification bell. YouTube will notify you each and every time I upload. And without further ado, if you guys want to see how I created this look, then just keep on watching and let's get right into this tutorial. I prime my eyes. I use my MAC's paint pot here in soft ochre, but because it's so drying, sometimes I find that I mix a little bit of Vaseline in with it. It just really kind of gives it that smooth texture. But lately I've been using this Profusion Conceal palette. I cannot say enough good things. You want to make sure that your brows are done, because in this, and actually in any eyeshadow application, a lot of the eyeshadow styles that are out there follow the quote shape of the brow, and so the brow kind of frames the face, so we want to make sure that the brows are done. You guys know I have come a long way in the brow game. So speaking of brows, the first area of the template that I'm going to start with, that I always start with, because I start and I finish with the actual brow bone highlight, because that's what kind of gives the eyeshadow, you know, the shape, right? And it also blends out the transition shade and kind of gives you that airy, airbrushed look. So basically, we're going to start and finish with the brow bone highlight. The brow bone highlight can be anything. It can be like a white, a bone shade. You can use like a skin tone friendly shade. I literally use it like as a blending tool shade as well, like I said, to buff out the transition shade. So I'm going to go with something really kind of light, just because I really want this to pop, because that's just what I like. So for this, I'm going to go in with one of these light shades over here. Now I have not touched this palette at all, so I have no idea which one to work with. It looks to me like typical Jeffree Star formula here. So I'm going to sweep this right underneath the arch of the brow. I'm going to keep this pretty high, so like on the high plane basically of the brow, just sweeping it right underneath the arch and then sweeping it out. This is really going to shape out the entire eyeshadow look, and at the end of the eyeshadow look, when we are done and I go back in and I retouch this up, you'll see how it brings everything together. I'm going to stop for just a quickie second and I'm going to contour my inner socket up here. It's just a staple that I literally do in every single tutorial. I'm going to kind of push this little bronzer, kind of swirl it right here in this inner socket right here. I'm going to get really, really high, really catfishing up here. I'm going to kind of push this up into that brow, and then I'm going to kind of connect it into like the nose bridge, and just kind of like where I do my nose contouring, just to give me that full contoured effect, if you will. So I'm just going to push that up in there. They're really nice and high up in there. And then I'm just going to kind of feather the edges of it out, because it's going to kind of connect into the transition shade, and it's just going to all kind of connect. All right, I went ahead and tapped in a little bit of concealer onto the lid space, because the next thing we're going to do is we are going to map out our lid space. This is going to make the eye look bigger. It's going to make you look like you have a lot more lid space than you have, because technically my crease fold is right here. So technically this is only the lid space that I have, but you can see that I'm catfishing. I'm going to go way up to where like my orbital bone is. So we're basically going in the quote hollow of the eye, which is directly underneath that bone. So that's how high I am taking this. I'm taking this all the way past my natural crease, all the way up to where my orbital bone is, and I'm kind of stopping like right where, I guess like right here where the skin just kind of like pushes like right underneath the bone. You can feel for it right in there, and you can feel the brow bone, right? So that's kind of where we're going. We're going right underneath there, and I'm gonna map out the actual lid, and I'm going to use a light shade for this. So I'm going to go back in to the white and cream shades that I was using, and I'm just going to tap. You want to tap and press this, especially if you're doing it on top of concealer, but you just want to tap and press anyway. You're just going to have more control over the shadows. You don't want to be swiping back and forth with this. We're just going to tap this in. We're going to get a line around the eyeball here. We're going to get, it's going to go right underneath the socket. I mean, it's going to go right, it's going to go in the socket, it's going to go right underneath the bone is where this line is going to be. So I'm hoping you can see that shape. This is going to be your guide. Once you have this down, you're literally golden. Like, you will know exactly where to place your next colors. I'm going to grab this other shade here because it's a little lighter. So just kind of tapping and pressing this in. So I've already done my brow bone highlight. You can see that area. You can see right here where I have mapped out my lid space. You can see I really catfished. I've given myself a nice, big, large lid space right here to work with. So it's this area in between, which is right underneath the brow bone, that we're going to be working. You can already see my natural shading right here, and that's going to be kind of a guide as to, you know, where I'm going to go with the shadows. You want to be putting the shadows like in the hollow of the eye. So right here, this little edge right here that I created, this little edge goes right underneath that socket bone. So right in the quote hollow of the eye. That's going to be our new crease area where we're going to be placing the shadows. Now, if you are using, I'm going to use a contour style brush just because I'm really going to be doing a lot more tapping and pressing and just kind of letting the shadows kind of blend themselves, as opposed to, you know, creating, you know, harsh lines with brushes, because that's just what brushes do. But if you are using a tapered blender, make sure you hold it at an upward angle, because the brushes that are tapered like this, that's what they're designed for. They're designed to kind of, you know, give you that target application because they're pointed, but the bristles on the side will blend the shadows out for you. So if you're using that kind of brush, make sure you do that, because if you're down here and you just go in, it's just going to create like a line, and then you're going to have trouble blending that out, and it's just going to be a big old mess. So it's a lot easier to kind of tap and press. So I'm going to go in with like a contour brush here. I think I showed this one. This is a Bobbi Brown contour, but this is actually a little bit big. So I'm using this one because it's a little bit smaller, and I think I'm going to go into one of these shades right here. Now, I haven't used these, so I'm sure with his normal formula, they're always pigmented. So I'm going to take a little bit of that brown shade and a little bit of that peachy shade. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this brush right in the hollow of the eye, so right on the edge of that line. This is where we're just going to kind of plug and play, and I'm just going to tap. I'm going to tap this color right underneath my brow bone highlight. And you can see that it just kind of gives that nice shaded effect, because where you have, and then I'm just going to kind of lightly blend out the edges, because where you have shade, you have to have light. Where you have light, you have shade. So now we kind of created this nice little shadow crease, and this is going to kind of give us that shape. I'm going to also kind of bring this up because I want all my shadows to go up, and I'm going to kind of connect it to that bronzer contour area that I put here, and then I'm just going to sweep this out. So it's going to kind of sweep out into the temple. That's going to give that kind of elongated eye effect. I'm just going to buff out the edges really slowly. They're very, very pigmented, and again, I'm just going right on top of that line, so putting this right in the socket right in there, and I'm just going to tap this right underneath my brow bone highlight, because this is where I want this color. I want this right on this brow bone because I really want to, quote, fake the crease. I want to get everything, you know, lifted higher, and this is going to be kind of like my new crease area, and I'm going to kind of build depth out here into this. And then I'm gonna switch to a nice big blender here and just continue to kind of buff the edges and sweep it out. It's usually kind of like a time-consuming thing, right? Because you're just kind of moving that shadow out, just one by one. Do the exact same thing that I did with that first shade. I'm gonna take this shade. I think this is just a little bit darker. I love the gradient effect of these shades, by the way. Just gonna tap it a little tiny bit. And I'm gonna kind of concentrate this more like right underneath that brow bone. So kind of like right in the center. I'm not gonna kind of bring it in or take it out. I'm just gonna kind of focus it right onto the center. I'm just gonna kind of tap it and press it right onto the brow bone. Just by doing that, you can kind of see it's just kind of blending in itself. Just tapping that right underneath that brow bone highlight, keeping that kind of right in the center. And then I'm just going to buff out these edges here. All right, I picked up a little bit more of that vanilla shade. I think I'm gonna go with an all matte look because it's been a hot minute since I've done that because I'm such a glitter bomb. I love my metallics, that metal foil effect, and I love my shimmers, but it's been a hot minute. And I actually do love a nice contoured, soft socket contoured crease with an all matte look. It's so beautiful. So I think I'm gonna do that today. So I picked up that vanilla shade. I'm just tapping this in. You don't wanna swipe it back and forth. Again, just tap. We wanna maximize this lid space. Look at that nice big lid space that I just created. Take that all the way up into the hollow of the eye, which is directly underneath that orbital bone. Get that in there. And then I'm gonna actually switch. I'm gonna keep it kind of a soft crease today. I'm not gonna go ahead and add any more concealer. Normally I will do that to just kind of make the shimmers pop. I think I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna take one of these darker shades here because we're gonna do a nice matte smoky wing today. So I'm gonna pick that up and I'm just gonna put a little bit of this onto this outer lid right here just to kind of give my eye that nice little shape out here. I'm not worried about taking it all the way down to like right in through here because I'm gonna be doing a wing. So I'm just gonna kind of shape out this eye right here, just pulling it down onto the lid and just kind of bringing a tiny bit of it inward, not much. And just because I'm kind of tapping and pressing and I did all that kind of blending up there, there's really not any blending that I really need to do with this. Quick little template map that you can use to kind of create a little feline flick and just to kind of get that wing going. I kind of toggle back and forth between flat definer brushes, an angled liner brush, a smudger brush, and then of course something like this, which is a pointed detailed blender. So this is the M507 from Morphe. So I'm gonna grab a little bit of that darker shade and I'm going to follow. So my guide here is basically following my lower lash line as always, like when I create that little feline flick. So I'm starting like right here at the lower lash line right there and just kind of going up, just kind of putting in some color right here and just kind of making like that little wing shape. So just kind of stamping in a little bit of that color. You're just kind of following the lower lash line and going up, just kind of stamping that in and just kind of hitting the outer part of this lash line right here. And then we're just going to flick that. This is literally the easiest way to do a smoky shadowing, is just to kind of start with that shadow right out here, create that little wing, and just start to do a nice little shadowing and kind of get all of that just kind of blowing out upwards so it all kind of connects. And then we're going to do the actual feline flick, and I'm going to show you the easiest way to do this. Now, because my eyes are slightly downturned, I'm not going to take that flick all the way down to the end where my lash line ends, right? Because I want, again, more of that almond effect. But I am going to start lower just for the sake of alignment. So I'm going to grab a little bit of color, and I'm going to start from my waterline right here, lower lash line, kind of going up, and just kind of flick. See that little feline flick? And then I'm going to actually pick up a little bit more of that color and I'm going to stamp right next to it. So I'm just going to kind of do another little flick right next to it so that it's up a little bit higher, because this one is obviously down at the bottom, but I do that one just to make sure that I have the alignment exactly for my eye shape. So I'm just going to stamp here, and then I'm going to actually start to kind of connect it in. And rather than going to the tip and drawing that line all the way in like what you normally see. I'm going to connect it a little bit at a time. So I'm going to stamp here right next to it, and then I'm going to go right onto my lashes right here and just kind of line here. And then as I get to the end right here where I have my little flick, I'm going to go to the base of that little feline flick and just start kind of drawing it over and just kind of connecting it a little bit at a time. I find that you get a much smoother wing when you do it that way, and it's really good for mature, crepey, wrinkly skin too, rather than just going to the edge and just kind of drawing that line back and having all that skin move about. This is just an easier way, and you also get a nice, smooth, more precise wing. For the inner corner, I'm going to keep this really, really close to the waterline. There's almost like kind of like you're tight lining. I'm not going to go up onto the actual lid because I want to kind of create that more lifted effect, kind of that cat eye. And the way you do that is just mainly by focusing the wing like on the outer half. You can also add false lashes to just like the outer half, and I'll kind of just give you that feline upturn. So I'm just taking this really thin right here, inner corner right here, almost like I'm tight lining. These shade names kill me. I'm gonna avoid saying them because some of you guys might not like all of these shade names. All right, so I'm gonna go in with one of these darker grayish, black shades right here, and this is where I'm gonna use my flat definer brush, and now I'm just going to stamp this right onto like the lashes. So you really just kind of want to stamp and wiggle. This is just going to add a lot of depth and dimension into the lash lines. We're just going to stamp and wiggle. So I picked up a little bit of that peachy shade, and I'm just putting this like right in the center here, like right where I have that outer corner, that color. I'm just going to mesh that little peachy shade, and then it's going to fade into that vanilla shade that I'm using for my inner corner and right here in the very front. I just really like that peach. I just feel like it just kind of adds a little pop of something something here, and it just kind of makes the look, because these browns can be kind of, you know, I've used kind of a mixture of warm tones and cool tones here with these browns, but yeah, I like this peach. It just kind of gives it a nice little warmth to the look. So that is what I'm doing. I'm kind of doing that gradient fade of color from the outer corner inward here. And just kind of meshing it all together. You just want to tap and press these colors in again. Remember, you don't want to be swashbuckling and swiping back and forth. We're just kind of tapping and pressing this in. You also get nicer pigmentation when you do that. A lot of times when you tap and press, the colors just kind of blend in themselves. All right, I like that. Now we're going to go into the brow bone highlight. We're going to finish with that because that is what we started with. I'm going to grab that vanilla shade, and I'm going to sweep it underneath the arch of the brow, and you're going to see how it's going to really kind of shape out this whole look. It's kind of like I start with this and I end with this step. Sweeping it underneath the arch of this brow just to shape out these shades that we put right here. A little bit of foundation, almost kind of like as a primer, right underneath my lash line here, because I'm going to use that as a little base for my shadow. I'm also going to kind of clean up out here while I'm here. Now I should have did some baking here. Even though you're dealing with neutral shades and nude shades, you still get some fallout. I should have probably did a little baking. You guys know how much I love my baking. I don't know how I forgot, but I did. And then I'm going to reach into some of these lighter shades and just kind of smoke a shadow right underneath the lash line. You guys know I can't do that raccoon look, you know, where you go in with the dark color all the way and do the rim. That just has never worked for me. So I'm just going to smoke this color right underneath. This also makes your eyes look bigger too, right? Because you have this little shadow going on right underneath here. We're just catfishing every which way possible over here. I'm going to kind of smoke that up. And then I'm going to take one of the darker shades. I'm going to kind of get... All right, so that pretty much completes the look. I'm going to come back and we're going to chat. I'm going to spray my face real quick. I have my Anastasia Dewy set and my fan. All right, guys, that completes the look. I probably should pop on a pair of falsies, especially just like in this little outer section. I've done that look before on Instagram, and it's such a pretty look. But you guys know what a loser I am when it comes to false eyelashes, so I don't even bother. But yeah, this is the final look. I love how it turned out. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like what you've seen, if you learned something, pick something up, I hope you will like, share, comment, and subscribe. And of course, hit the subscribe button on your way out of town if you're not already subscribed. And that is it. Mwah. Love you guys, and I will see you all in my next one. Bye, guys. Stay safe.